is a log in the weary land, a shelter in the time of storm. Here's the lily of the valley, and here's the Prince of Peace. When they put old John in the kettle of oil, who is falling feet. My God is a rock in the weary land, in the weary land. My God is a rock in the weary land, a shelter in the time of storm. Stop, let me tell you about the chapter one. The Lord's gone away, can't just be gone. Stop and let me tell you about the chapter of truth. The Lord's gone written his Bible too. Stop and let me tell you about the chapter of three. My God died on Calvary, then I know.
Morristown College was really a very, during the early years, I say during those years, was a very self-sufficient, self-sustaining organization. The history speaks to the fact that when it was built, the students made the bricks on the front lawn, those bricks that are partially still there, and then they built the campus, and there were area craftsmen that helped build it. They made brooms in the broom factory on campus. They sold these brooms all over the world, literally. They basically were self-sufficient in that whatever they needed, they could produce themselves, so that sustained the college. During that time, Dr. Hill was the president. He was still traveling around the world and around the country to raise money for the college. So there was never a threat, I think, any more than usual, a financial threat to closing the college in those times, because you know, there was a broom making, there was a mechanic shop. They basically were able to be self-sufficient and taught these skills to the students that were there, and they became self-sufficient.
If you have anybody in your family or anybody that you have had contact with that wants to know what's most important about college life, I would say Morristown College was the very image of what it should be, because there was so much interest in the people that were in school there that there was no question left unanswered. And I'm sure for most kids, you know, but it really, really served a good purpose for me, because during my life I've been in a position of leadership, so to speak, even when I went to service, and it really helped me along the line, the care that I got here at Morristown. And it was just, over my years, I mean, it was just a family atmosphere there. It was no, you know, I mean, even though, if I'm not mistaken, I think in either 50 or 52, there was all states represented at Morristown College, you know? And one of the areas that was probably had more people here than others was in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And of course, most of those were men coming in to play football because they had heard about the football team and had heard about, you know, how well it was doing and all. Our coach was a graduate of Tennessee State, A&I State at the time. So as a youngster, I had to have that needed to probably save my life.
The teachers, the faculty that was there, I'd like them to remember what they taught me, what I learned from them, how important it was, Morristown College was to not only the students, but to those teachers who spent their time and their effort and their money to make life wonderful for the students. It was a wonderful, I like to remember how it was for the town. They had a place in the town, a connection with the people in this town. They looked at Morristown College as just a wonderful place that it was. I'd like for them to remember how the teachers really cared about the students that they taught and that they were with every day, and how they would go to the homes. They was at my home many times, some of the teachers out in the country, and although we didn't have a big dining room, they were just as comfortable sitting in our kitchen eating and enjoying the food. And that's how they connected with the people in the community. The kindness of Miss Ethel Walker, the caring of Mr. S.A. Kane, and the work that Dr. Boyd done all those years and all that traveling that he done to bring money to that college. I can remember him leaving, and when he'd come back, we'd be so glad to see him, you know, and he'd walk the halls, and he knew everybody's name, and he'd talk to us and tell us where he's been, and we'd always want to hear him in the chapel, tell where he'd been, all the places he'd been, and all the money, you know, that he'd raised for the college.
I met my husband at Morristown College, and we sat at the well, had a well, and me and him sat at the well every day. We didn't have any other place to, you know, to go. So it meant a lot to me to go up to college.
Athletes of Morristown College, I did play on the college team, and we had some pretty good players at the time. We played some major black college at the time in football, basketball, and baseball. Teachers that was there that taught me was my cousin Ethel Walker, and S.A. Kane. He was a principal. He taught literature. He was a very good literature teacher. His wife, Miss Kane, she taught math and trigonometry and whatever. And had some real good teachers at the time. Our coach at the time was Ulysses McPherson, and he was a good coach. He was like a father to all of the players, really. Coach McPherson was. He coached football and basketball. He had some assistants at the time, but it's not like assistants to the coaches now. He made us to get our lessons. We had to get our lessons if we gonna travel or play basketball, football. He was very strict on us about getting our lessons. Coach McPherson was. I remember I missed his class one day, me and my cousin, and he called us up at the gymnasium, and he had a paddle at his classroom. He brought that paddle up there, and he paddled us down to his classroom. And then he told us after he got through paddling us, he said, "Go tell your mom and daddy that I paddled you." Well, I did not do that. And I don't think the other young man done it either. But I didn't ever skip no more classes. They taught me not to skip no more classes.
We had Mr. Williams as a music teacher, and he had one of the best choruses after Miss Carter. She was the one before him. And the only thing was you go home, you'd have to walk all the way back up there to practice the choir at night. But the choir was excellent. We were blessed because we had such excellent teachers, you know. There wasn't many in our graduating class, I remember that. We didn't have classes of like 50 students or something like that. We might have had 20 or 25. It was a beautiful campus, and they had clubs too, because I can remember when they were initiating. Some of the fellows, they'd have them up standing in the trees singing to you as you went by. But the campus was beautiful, windows and everything. And I would like for them to remember just how much it meant, not only to the people of Morristown, but for the areas all around Morristown, all the little towns around here, because they would bus some of the students from the small towns in. And all those students from New York, Philadelphia, and those that the Methodist Church probably sent to Morristown College because it was a Methodist church, But it was an excellent, excellent place to be. And it's just so heartbreaking to think that all the buildings and everything is torn down and they're going to make a park up there. I don't think there's anyone that attended Morristown College that wouldn't be proud that it was here and that they were able to attend it, because it was an excellent school.
Remember this now. It's funny how things can float back into your mind. The president of Morristown College was a man named Dr. Boyd. And his favorite hymn was "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." He was Methodist. And I think on Wednesday when we had the chapel, we had everybody would come to chapel at a certain time, we would open the ceremonies by singing "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." That was his favorite gospel song. I remember that much.
I was homecoming queen in 1956, and that's one of my real good moments and good things I like to think about that year. That was a wonderful year. It was my sophomore year, and I was elected queen of Morristown College. From then, and it was just people from little old Danridge thought I was a movie star and that I was elected queen. I just, during these memories, I just miss Morristown College. And I'm thankful that we do have this reunion organization that gives us a chance to be together, renew memories, look at the yearbooks, pictures, and it's good. They're good memories. And I have met very few people who, in fact, I haven't met any who have bad memories of Morristown College.
It was like going to school anywhere else. I've had a lot of people say to me, "How did you get along up there?" I got along with 90% of the people, and if they'd been white people, it would have still been 90%. I could care less what their color was, and not many of them cared what color mine was. Wonderful experience. Easy to get along with the teachers and the students. We would laugh and have fun in class and just enjoyed being there.
About Morristown College is the professors were not all black, they were white, we were mixed, and they got along well with the community. And I just thank God that Dr. Justin S. Hill was here to give it to us, because at that time it helped the black kids that didn't have any place to go to school, that he opened it up for us. And the one thing that I hate to see is that the way that it was destroyed. What can you say? I'm just glad that I was able to be a part of it, and I had 2 or 3 family members that worked there that taught at the college. I had one aunt that taught English, and the other one aunt that was matron at the women's dormitory. All my family, my cousin Josephine and we went to high school there, and we went to college there. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
I attended Morristown College for about 3 semesters, 1968 and 69. As we all know, those years were historically significant in the United States. A lot of things had been happening, a lot of things were happening, and a lot of things were going to happen in years to come. Matter of fact, the authors and publishers of the textbooks we were using were having a hard time keeping up with everything that was going on. They were relatively good, relatively new textbooks, but just didn't have a lot of the material information that was happening in the last few years, because I guess we spent about 1/3 of the term in the American history class talking about the accomplishments of black Americans in the past. And in the social science class, a lot of things were going on in the country, and we discussed many social issues and problems at the time. And I remember one particular class in social science. We had a survey, he conducted a survey, and asked the students to raise their hands to which option they felt was best. And the focal question of that survey was, how many of you think that racial prejudice, religious prejudice, ethnic prejudice, all other type of prejudices will disappear? And the options were, first he asked the question, how many of you think that it will disappear in the next 10 years? And I guess about half of the class raised their hand because we were very optimistic at the time. And probably about 12 students raised their hand thinking that everything was going to be okay in the next 10 years. Everyone would live together. There would be no disharmony, no social injustice. And then he asked again, how many of you think that it will disappear in the next 25 years? Well, about half the class had already voted, but probably about 4 more students raised their hands. And then the next option was 50 years, which was about 50 years ago when we conducted that survey. He said, how many of you think it will disappear, all the social injustice and prejudices will disappear in 50 years? And a couple of people raised their hands. It appeared that everyone had raised their hand and had voted, but this one young lady had not raised her hand. I noticed it. I looked around the classroom, and she was a student from Atlanta, Georgia. She raised her hand to the last option. She felt like that social injustice, racial prejudice was going to be around forever. And she stated that we have come a long way in just a few years, but we have a long way to go. Things will improve with the course of time, and we all should try to counterattack racial prejudice, but it will always be around. We can improve our lives and try to influence others to counter these negative attitudes and behaviors, but it will always be here. And that's when I first heard the word utopia and the meaning of that word. She says this is not utopia, it's not a perfect society, and neither will it ever be. Of course, everyone in the class was stunned, including this young professor. Of course, he agreed with her, and we had a good discussion about this particular topic. About 2 decades later, I was discussing this particular class with a former classmate of mine. He had become one of the first black administrators in the Morristown school system, in the integrated Morristown school system since integration. And he stated how big of an influence this young professor had on his success. It was a very interesting time, and the memories still have hung around for all these years.
Morristown College dear to my heart, dear to the instructors. There was Alberta King who taught math, and Mr. Shurncy, he was an English teacher who would always correct me. And I was, at the time, thought that he was picking at me, but he was really correcting me in a manner, the way that a gentleman should speak, and I appreciate that. Miss Kane was just one who just loved me in submission of learning math, and said, if I must pay you in fractions, would you understand how much money you would have on your check? And she taught me a lot of discipline, because math required a lot of discipline at the time. But Morristown College was a great place. It's very missed now, but I still hold it in my heart. Even though the buildings up there are demolished and a lot that has happened to it, I still have a vision of it. It's clean and beautiful place in my heart, that it played a part of this chapter, a certain chapter of my life, and it brought me a mighty long ways, and I'm thankful for Morristown College.
I started teaching at Morristown College about 1969, I believe it was, until about 1976 or 77. I taught general chemistry, earth and space science, and environmental science. So my wife Shirley was the first to teach at the college some night classes in biology. She had a major in biology and chemistry combination. Incidentally, how Shirley and I met was an interesting story. We were both employed at Oak Ridge analyzing uranium-235 for the first atomic bomb that was dropped. Both of us analyzed some of that uranium that went into the first atomic bomb. That's where I met my wife, who was a Queens College graduate with a double major in chemistry and biology, and we both had analytical experience. And I was sorry to see the college fold up. I found it interesting and very enjoyable place to work.
I was elected mayor of Morristown in 2007, and on my way to work every day, I would drive across 7th North and see the buildings there. And it was a constant reminder of the deterioration of the building and the lack of vision for the future for it. I formed the task force on diversity in 2009 as a way of bringing people together around the table to talk about diverse issues. And one of the subjects that came to the surface, of course, was Morristown College. It wasn't just a local African-American college. It had people coming from all over the country to it. I think it's so important to have the history of the college itself, the buildings, the campus, but the stories of the people who attended college there, who taught there, who were administrators there, who worked in various levels there, remembered and told for the future. History comes alive when people are put into its story. History isn't just dates and names to be remembered, it's the people, and we owe it to those people to tell their stories to future generations.
I'm Dr. Joe Matlock. I'm a retired dentist from Morristown, and my great-great-grandfather was Judson S. Hill, the president of and one of the founding fathers of Morristown College. I really hope that the history can be maintained so we don't forget what happened, what he did for the community and what he did for the freed slaves. It's really important that we maintain that history for the town and for the city of Morristown. I just hope that all that can be remembered in a lasting way, maybe a museum or whatever they can do to maintain that history for the town.
Many of our members are alumni of Morristown. Some of us were on staff, my husband and I. Louis Hargraves came from North Carolina, and she was the librarian there. My husband was the business manager. I was the secretary to 2 college presidents there, Dr. Haynes and Dr. Gibson. And we were the first chartered Black organization in Morristown and Hamilton County, Progressive Business. So when they disbanded, the trustees and the Justin Hill trustees gave us much of the memorabilia of Morristown College for us to preserve and keep. And we especially are proud of the Bishop's Table, where Dr. Hill wrote all of the bishops in the Methodist Conference and asked them to send a piece of wood. They made a tabletop out of that, and they sent us the history of what the piece of wood represents. And we are preserving that in our building at the Judson S. Hill Head Start building.
Morristown College provided an opportunity for African Americans to regain their identity. If we remember, slavery robbed slaves of their identity, taking them out of Africa. We had no identity, we had no purpose. And then even after slavery, we were out of bondage, but we still had no education. So education is important. In order for us to do well in American society, to help communities, to help our families, and to help the world, we must have education. And Morristown College provided that opportunity for African Americans who otherwise would not have had the opportunity.
Just growing up here, you know, this is East Tennessee, and you know, not the population of folks of African descent was, you know, 6, 7, 8%, but these folks were all educated and they had skills. Watching the community colleges come in, the cheaper form of education with younger professors and newer equipment, probably led to the demise of Morristown College. I sincerely think that the college is sitting on the best piece of real estate in this town, and that there's still enough of it to be saved to you know, to make a community center, just to remember what that college has done for the community and the people around here. I remember growing up, for us white kids, the only opportunity to go to college was to Carson Newman College, which was expensive, and East Tennessee State and University of Tennessee, where we had to live down there, that added to the expense. So they allowed several of us white folks to attend school there, or several of my white friends to attend school there, and they got the beginnings of their education through Morristown College. So the college is, you know, it belongs to the folks that benefited from their education, as well as it belongs to the community.
But I think that Morristown College laid the groundwork for this community, because we have people who have a pleasant attitude, and that goes down, that sifts down, so that we got immediate good response from our black community. They were, if you went to anything that they were responsible for, you were certainly felt welcome. And they made an extra effort, I think, to impart that to the community. I'm not sure that we whites were as gracious and welcoming. It was a warmth that you do not get in the general public. I think our integration went extremely well. The kids were very receptive in that. In fact, the average one that came out of Mr. Kane's school was better instructed than the average that we had out of our own schools. And I had Dr. White's daughter in my class at one time, and the thing that I remember most about her was she was a happy child. I often look back at my children, and so many of them were well-rounded, loved by the parents, and a joy to work with. Only one or two were dysfunctional, and so it was a pleasure to be with them all the time. And the ones at Morristown College I found extremely receptive, and they were so pleasant. When they had a dinner or a party or anything, you could count on it being top-notch. And the ladies, most of them belonged to the Phyllis Whitney garden club or book club, whichever it was, but they would go dressed to the hilt, looking beautiful, every one of them. And I think things like that were an outreach of the college, were a really top-notch experience for the community. And I think that the relationships of all the teachers Alberta Kane and Mr. Kane. I think those were reflected in the product that they sent out from their schools. I think they just symbolized what was good behavior and what was politeness and what was justice. And we reaped the benefits.
Have a lot of memories of the college. I knew several people that attended the college. I hate that it's got to this point. It's a shame to see some of the architecture and stuff that's up there that it's just gone to waste. But hopefully, through efforts of the city and community leaders and stuff, we can preserve some of the history of Morristown College, because it's important to the community. A lot of families that traveled here to go to school from Tazewell and other places ended up settling in Morristown, and we benefited from the different people that moved here. Besides the purchase price, the city's invested, I think originally $700,000 for the demolition of those structures. We did a change order yesterday for $270,000 for additional asbestos. The previous owner wouldn't let us on the property, wouldn't let any of the companies we were dealing with. We already had a contract for demolition and asbestos removal, but he wouldn't let us on site to evaluate the buildings. So that's where this change order came in, because they didn't actually know what was there. But I think the city we've already made a commitment to preserve that site, and I think, I'm not speaking for all the council, but just from what I've been around, I think that's going to be the end result.
You start a college course, keep it going. If it calls for all your force, keep it going. And I said to the students here, the cap you wear upon your head is the richest black and red, and you have knowledge yet unsaid, so keep it going. And then another one is that a diamond in the rough is a diamond sure enough, for before it was ever found, it was made of diamond stuff. But someone must find it, or it never would be found, and someone must grind it, or it never would be ground. But when it's found, and when it's ground, and when it's burnished bright, that diamond's everlastingly are flashing out its light. And I remind them that Morristown College has found you and has helped to polish you so that you can go out and flash your light.
So HBCUs, or historically black colleges and university, is very dear to our heart, because it was after enslavement that HBCUs grew out of the church, of saying that it is imperative that we learn to read and write so that we will not only be able to take care of ourselves, but we will have this whole notion of being a person that just did not have an oral history, but a written history as well. So it is with sadness that we see the assault on historically black colleges and universities, that see that they are not relevant anymore. That it is suggested that since we live in a quote-unquote post-racial society, that historically black colleges and universities does not have the support and the resources that will sustain them. So the closing of a Morristown, the closing of a Knoxville College, the closing of a Morris Brown, all of these are very significant, and it shows the injustices that continues to occur. That is reason why even in 2017, you have first generation of African Americans that not only go to college, but even graduate from high school, because it has been mandated that to teach a person of African descent to have that education is seen as something that is taboo, because slaveholders knew that physical coercion of keeping those persons of African enslaved was not enough. So you had slave codes that were enacted to prohibit persons of African descent to read or write. And with that, and so the policies, even under the Obama administration, through the assault of Pell Grants and the Parent Plus loans, all of these things speaks to the reason why historically Black colleges and universities should have a visibility, and it should speak to all of us of how we need to reach out and support those that are still in existence.